and welcome to Pushing Cardboard, a brand new wargaming podcast. My name's Grant Linneberg. I'm your host, and this is our inaugural episode, so this will be the one I look back on and say, oh my God, look at all the things I did wrong. I've been a wargamer since the mid-1970s. Probably my first war games were a couple of those old Milton Bradley games, Dogfight or Broadside. But my first real war games were Tobruk and Richthofen's War. The first couple of Avalon Hill games I got, I was hooked and was an Avalon Hill fan ever since and a wargamer ever since. I really got deep into Squad Leader and ASL and even founded an ASL club here in my hometown, Calgary, in the 90s. And played religiously in that club. We met every couple of weeks until I finally gave up ASL around 2000. But the club is still going. My good friend Indy Legoo has been running it in my absence ever since. And about a year ago, I got back into ASL, and they're still going. So now I'm back a member of that club. I don't get to play face-to-face as much as I'd like to. So I play a ton of Vassal PBEM. I still get the occasional face-to-face game in. I hopefully will get more in as COVID lifts and it's easier to see people and work life changes. Who knows what the shape of this podcast will be over whatever its run is. I'm sure the first few episodes will iron out kind of a format, but I think I'd like to talk a little bit about anything in the news or what I've been playing. As I mentioned, I do a lot of Vassal PBEM. So what I've been playing lately over Vassal is a ton of Commands and Colors stuff always. I've got one game of Ancients going, a game of Napoleon going, a game of Tricorn going, and I just started a new game of Samurai. It's my first ever scenario playing Samurai battles. And so I'll probably get smoked in that one, but it's been fun learning. I've got a couple of ASL scenarios going, both of them small but interesting. I've got my second game of Unhappy King Charles is underway. A game of Wilderness War that's in its final turn, and I did, as the French, I had been winning all along, and the damn Brits are making a big comeback in the final turn, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to stop them and win this one. I'm in my second scenario of Last 100 Yards, the Airborne box, giving that a go. I got a couple of games of Bayonets and Tomahawks on the go. Terrific new game if you haven't seen that one. I really recommend it. Re-picking up a game of Nemesis Burma 1944. My partner had been swamped by work for about a month, and now he's back at it, so we're picking that back up, as well as a game of Return to the Rock, Corregidor. And finally, I've got a game of Imperial Struggle on the go. We're making plenty of mistakes in that one, or at least I am, so this is more of a learning game where we dial it back a turn every once in a while because the mistakes are just too egregious to keep going with. Anyway, that's what's on my virtual table these days. On my actual table, it's more just new games that have come over the transom that I've been soloing and having a look at just to try and teach myself the rules, or older games that, for example, I think I've got a game of For the People coming up on Vassal, so I've busted out the cardboard copy of that, and I'm reteaching myself that game because I've never had an opposed play, so I want to be ready for the Vassal PBEM. I think each episode of Pushing Cardboard I'll try to take a look at a couple of games, maybe an older one and a newer one. Although newer for me could be as old as 5 years. When I talk about newer games, I'm not talking about things that are within a year old. I'm an older gamer, so my idea of older versus newer is maybe a little more flexible. For this episode's older game, I want to talk about Commands and Colors Ancients, which came out in 2006, designed by Richard Borg. The artist was the great Roger B. McGowan, and published by GMT Games. I find this game is the best introduction to Commands and Colors games, other than maybe Battlecry 150. But Battlecry 150 has minis that might put some people off, and is really very, very simple. But Commands and Colors Ancients has just a little more meat on the bones, and yet it's sort of the sweet spot of not too simple, lots going on, lots of expansions, and if you can learn Commands and Colors Ancients, I mean, anyone can learn it. Once you've learned Ancients, you can learn any of the other Commands and Colors systems games really easily, because they all sort of take it as their starting place and then twist it a little bit. Ancients has the bones of the system that Commands and Colors is built on. It's always just a plain hex grid battle map board divided into 3 sections: center, left, and right. Sometimes there's some terrain. The terrain is the map board itself is always clear, but the terrain, depending on the scenario, there's little overlays you place on the map to indicate hills or woods or whatever the terrain is. The other thing about most Commands and Color games is that they are block games, meaning that the pieces are painted wood blocks with stickers on them to indicate what unit is what. Now, this is not, if you've played any of the Columbia games, block games where the stickers are only on one side and they use the blocks as a fog of war type mechanism, that's not how it works with the Commands and Color systems. There's stickers on both sides so both players can see what any unit is at any time. The blocks are just they're just nicer to handle than cardboard counters. They've got a great tactile feel. There's a few games in the Commands and Colors family, like Battlecry, Memoir, the Great War, that use minis. I never like these as much. I'm not a minis guy. I always think the minis are going to break. I find them fiddly. I'm not a painter, so I don't care for the minis as much. But for me, I'll play with either. It all just comes down to the play of the game. I'm more interested in the game than the aesthetics. But I really love the blocks in these classic GMT versions of the Commands and Colors games. All the different units have different unit capabilities. Some can move farther than others. Some roll more battle dice than others. Some can only do melee, as in close combat type attacks. You have to be right adjacent to the other unit to attack it. Some can do ranged attacks, and so there's all the different units have different capabilities, and the stickers on the block show you what unit is what. I wish they'd have the names on them, but instead they just have like a little symbol and then a drawing of the unit. These old eyes would rather see something. I find the drawings to look a lot alike, so something that was a little bit more definitive would have suited me better. But the basic way of play in a Commands and Colors game is each player has a hand of cards, usually somewhere between 4 to 6, depending on. That's another part of the scenario setup. Whatever scenario you have, each side gets its force. They're laid out in it's not a free setup. The setup is predetermined, and also the size of each hand is predetermined. So you may have better forces than me, but a smaller hand, and that's a way that the designers of the scenarios balance each scenario. The cards in general will say something like order 2 units on the left side, or order 3 units in the center, or maybe even something like order 1 unit in each zone, and that tells you which units you can move and then fight with. There's obviously other specialty cards that do all kinds of special things, but that's the basic way the game works. I play a game, move a few of my pieces, attack you. I play a card, move my pieces, attack you. You respond, then you play a card, move a few of your pieces and attack me. And of course, after you play your card and make your turn, you draw another card. So your hand is always at the 4, the 5, or the 6, whatever the level is at. Game ends when one side or the other has eliminated a set number of the other side's units. Whenever you eliminate a unit, you get a banner, and each scenario will also say that the game goes to 4 or 5 or maybe even up to 9 banners. Usually it's around 6 or 7. That might be one of the drawbacks of the game. Most games are always the first to a certain amount of banners. There's every once in a while a little bit of something in terms of terrain capture or a unique victory condition that allows you a victory point for exiting or something like that. But mostly it's just big slugfests where the first 1 to 5 or the first 1 to 7 wins. And if I had something that I would encourage scenario designers to do, it would be to come up with some more interesting victory conditions for these games. The other great thing about the game, also you could see it as maybe a drawback. I'm not sure. It depends how you feel about this and how deep your pocketbooks are. There's the base game, and then there's 6 expansion boxes, and each expansion adds, in general, another nationality or another army. Like there's a box for the barbarians. There's a box maybe for the Spartans. I think there's a box of late Roman units. So there's all the way the units work is, in general, the Spartan units will work just like the first units we got in the first box, but there might be 1 or 2 new units, or there's 1 or 2 special units in each box, or 1 or 2 special rules in each box. But the great thing is the first box comes with 15 or 20 scenarios, and each succeeding box with the new army and new units comes with another 15 or 20 scenarios. So there's no shortage of scenarios to play. I think it's a bit of a cash cow for GMT and Richard Borg in putting them out, these all these new scenarios with new blocks and new stickers. I think the game would have worked just as well if the very first box had just a blue army and a red army, and then when you got a scenario, it told you which side was what, and the pieces were interchangeable depending on what the armies were, and then they could have just published scenario book after scenario book. But that would have they're probably making a lot more money on publishing the boxes, and I gotta say, seeing all the different colors, it does look nice. So if you're really into components, I can see how you could get hooked on how beautiful each different set of blocks are. I play this game by Vassal, play by email, quite a bit. I think I've played over, maybe 220 matches of it that way in the last 4 or 5 years. The current Vassal module 4.1 came out in 2019. It was a complete overhaul of the old Vassal module, and it is fantastic. It's just a great upgrade. If you've never played Vassal before, you can play Vassal live online if both players have Vassal installed on their computers. You both log in, you hook onto their server and play each other live, and it's just like playing the game on your web browser screen. Or you can play it asynchronously, meaning that I make a move in my log file, either email it or to you or put it in a Dropbox that you've got capability of reading. You throw it into your version of Vassal and step through the log and see what I did, and then you start your log file, make it, send it back to me. That play by email way, that's the way I've done by far the majority of my Vassal play, and it's been very satisfying. When you're short of face-to-face opponents like I've been, it's been just a godsend. The Vassal module, as I said, it's terrific. It's by I think his name is Alessandro Crespi, A-L-E Crespi is the handle he goes by on the module, on the Vassal Module server where you can download them from. He's just done a great job. The module includes the setups for all the published scenarios. It's got some nice little upgrades in it, such as when you mark a unit as the unit you're firing with, it automatically marks the previous unit you were firing with as having had fired, so that you can't inadvertently fire that one again. I really like the fact that the dice in this module are not in a dice tray, but there's just icons for them across the top of the screen, so you can pick however many dice you need to roll, click that button, and they roll. When they're in a dice tray, it really messes up your workflow in PBEM, because every time you have to use the dice tray, it steals the focus away from what you're typing in the chat line. There's options for how you show hits in this module, whether it's little block dots or numbers on the units. It's very aesthetically pleasing. It's got a sound effect in it that there's a button to turn it on and off. I turned it off. For me, the on-off button didn't work very well, so I just replaced the file with a file that has no noise in it, so that when it tries to play this crazy little marching noise, that doesn't play, because that sort of thing drives me a bit batty. But anyway, overall, this is a great module. It's got the notes widget in it, which I always appreciate. I think every module should have the notes widget, and it's great for PBEM. I know maybe some guys can't sort of imagine playing a game like this over email, because it's each turn is so quick. But I love having the ability to just dash off a 3 to 5 minute turn and send it off to my pal. Totally recommend it. As a newer game this week, I want to talk about Nemesis Burma 1944 by Kim Kanger, published by Legion Wargames. And the artist on this is also Kim Kanger. It's not often you see a designer and artist all in one, but when it happens, and when they are equally as good at graphic design as they are at game design, like Kim Kanger is, oh wow, what a difference it makes. This game is so beautiful. The map is beautiful. The counters are beautiful. Everything is completely legible and beautiful, but still totally functional. There's nothing here that gets in the way of enjoying the game. It's all. It makes me think that whatever was in Kim Kanger's head came out in this game. I've got a few of his games, and they're always a joy to look at and a joy to play. I think he's a great designer and a great graphics designer. So it's a 1-2 punch. He's makes him pretty much my favorite designer designing today. This game is a World War II game, obviously 1944 in Burma. It's an interesting game, and there's not a lot of games on this topic. It's got the Japanese in the center of the map, and then over to the right side you've got Shanghai Czechs, Chinese, which may or may not come into the action. At the top of the map you've got General Stilwell and the Americans coming down from the top, and then over from the left side of the map you've got the British forces. It's a chit pull game, but it's a little bit of a variation on the old chit pull. The chits that go in the cup, each side just has 4 chits. The chits don't represent formations the way they often do in many chit pull games. The chits instead, I think the closest thing you could say is it's like if you had a game had a sequence of play that was divided into phases. It takes the meat of the game, the main 4 phases of the game, and puts them in the cup for each player. So basically, when it's your turn to pull a chit, you're not activating just a certain a certain bit of your units, but you're pulling a phase of the game to play. The other interesting tweak is you always get to choose your first chit and put it upside down so that your opponent doesn't know. You know what your first chit is. It can't be the same chit that you played in last on the first on the previous turn. So you do get to decide what your first chit is always going to be. The chits. One other thing that's worth noting is that the 4 chits are assault, attack, reinforce, and supply. The assault and attack are the 2 chits that allow you to move and engage in combat. But you're also, on each of those, you're only allowed 3 battles for the assault chit and 3 battles for the attack chit. So it's not like you can set your engage your whole line all along the line every time it's your turn to move. The assault chit allows all your pieces to move, but you pick your 3 battles and you can only attack from 1 hex of your units into that battle hex. Whereas the attack chit allows all your units to move, but just 1 hex each. But if the battle hex where you're attacking him, if you happen to have, say, 3 hexes adjacent to that battle hex with your units in it, you can attack with all 3 into that 1 hex. So you can have multi-hex attacks on the attack chit, but only one stack combat on the assault chit. The reinforcement chit, basically, that's just what it says. There's a turn track with where you get reinforcements every turn. Plus, you can spend a little money to spend resource points to recover some of the step losses you might have had from previous turns. And then the final chit is the supply check chit, which means you instantly have to check supply. And it's interesting that you'd never know when the supply check is going to come. So you can, if you want to gamble a bit, you might gamble on the supply chit not coming till later and get yourself out of supply, hoping you're going to be able to get yourself back into supply after you make your attack. But you might get bit in the butt by the supply chit coming out too soon and putting your units out of supply or in limited supply. The chit pull mechanism of this game is what makes it really exciting. Another thing that really impacts the game is troop quality. Each unit each unit is rated from 1 to 3 in terms of its troop quality, and that has a variety of effects on the game. The greater the troop quality, the less often you have to check supply, and the more likely you are going to be able to pass supply. Also, if you're attacking me with and one of us has a higher troop quality than the other, that's a positive or a negative DRM for whoever, going whichever way, whoever has the better troop quality. And finally, in terms of zones of control in this game, the zones of control aren't that huge, but a 3 quality troop has a little larger and a little stickier zone of control than a 2 quality troop, and a 1 quality troops have almost no zone of control. So that makes an effect as well. The units in this game are basically their regiments, and then broke down into battalions as you take losses. The other really interesting mechanic in this game is the way they do supply. It's like a lot of other games where you have you have your headquarters units, and also you have some mule supply units that allow you to throw supply a little farther from your city, from your towns or your HQs. But in this game, supply is measured in movement points, and the supply measurement goes from the unit doing the supply to the unit that needs supply. A lot of games, most games, I think, count supply back from, if I have a unit on, Hex 35, I go and I can count supply back to where the supply originates from. The fact that you count to the unit that needs supply makes a big difference when that unit is in a high movement point terrain. If it's in mountainous terrain or rough terrain, you might not be able to reach that because you don't have that extra fourth point of supply movement available to you. It's like I said, I don't think this is the only game that did it that way. But wow, it makes pushing forward just a puzzle sometimes, and it's one of the most frustrating and fantastic parts of the game at the same time. The final thing I'd like to say about this game is it's got some really, really interesting victory conditions. There's a 10-point track for both players, and it's called like the Satisfaction and Lament track. Each player has a counter for their general, whether the Allies it's General Sim and the Japanese it's General Mutaguchi. Both players on that track have a lament marker, and then both have their upper leader. There's a Churchill is satisfied counter for the Allies, and a Hirohito is satisfied counter for the Japanese. And the victory conditions in this game is to end the game with your leader, Churchill or Hirohito, more satisfied than the other player's leader. So it's not based exactly on any particular terrain that needs to be taken or force that needs to be defeated, although those things will help to make the leaders satisfied. But it's all dependent on making these leaders satisfied. Whenever you do something good, your general, Slim or Haraguchi, will move forward. When they get all the way to 9 and wrap around, then your grand leader goes up one. But when things go bad for you, your lament marker goes up. And when it wraps around, your leader goes down. So that's a really, really interesting and different victory condition than most other war games. I play this one on Vassal PBM as well. The current module is 2.3A from January 2021. A beautiful module, of course, because it uses Kim Kanger's beautiful map and counters. It's not a lot of automation in this module, other than it's got cups for the phase chip, the chit draws for the phases. But it doesn't need a lot of automation. I suppose it might be nice to have an automated way to remove the ambush and air support markers. But they have, if you right-click on them, they'll go back to their home spot at the end of a turn. The only thing that I would say that I disappointed about this module is it does not have a notes widget, which is bad for PBM, especially in games like this that, it's going to take a few months to finish a PBEM game of this. And a notes widget is great for leaving notes for yourself. It's not so much for notes between you and your opponent, but leaving notes for yourself so you can, if you haven't got a turn back from your partner for a week, you might want to look in your notes to see just what it was you had planned to do, or sometimes you leave ideas of future strategies in those notes. There's a lot of things you can leave for yourself to that. If you were playing face-to-face, it would just, sit in your head for the duration of the game. That would be fine. But because the time of playing PBM is so long sometimes, having that notes widget is a real godsend. I know a lot of modules designers say, hey, it's easy to add. Just put one in and do ABC. But it's like a lot of guys aren't so good with ABC on coding what feels to them like coding Vassal. And if it's really easy, then hey, designers, just pop one in. I don't think it takes up a lot of space in your module. Each episode, I'd also like to talk about some piece of media or something in the hobby that I saw that I want to give a shout out to, whether it's another podcast or a video or a magazine or whatever. This episode, I want to highlight a great review. A YouTuber named Zilla Blitz. That's Zillablitz. Zilla Blitz is a YouTuber, and he covers lots of different games. He's not just a war game cover, although he's getting back into war games now. Sort of one of those folks who took a lot of time off from the hobby and is getting back in. But he posted a video the other day that really struck my fancy. It was called Zilla Blitz Wargame Shelf Tour 1. So look that up in YouTube if you're a YouTube fan. It's a simple little idea. I think he might have even got it from somewhere else. But he just took 10 games at random off his shelf, and he did a little couple minutes on each one on why they're in his collection, why he's played them or why he hasn't played them, and if he has played them, why he wants to keep playing them. It's just sort of like little thumbnail look into what kind of games different gamers like and what keeps them in the collection. I might do a video section for my own website like this. I found it in an intriguing and kind of nice and quick way to get to know a guy's collection. It was really cool. So Zilla Blitz. All right, well that's just about it for this episode. I just want to wrap up by talking a little bit about I guess I'm part of the gray end of the hobby, and there's a lot of new blood coming into the hobby, which is terrific. We're seeing a lot of Euro gamers cross over, and we're seeing the influence of those designs come into wargame designs, which is all terrific. For me, what isn't terrific is a lot of folks are starting to refer to the counters. Now, these are Hex and Counter wargames, but they keep calling the counters chits. They're not chits. They're counters. Let's think of them as counters. I know when I was talking about Nemesis, I talked about those chits, but that's because there's a certain kind of counter that's a chit. The kind of thing you pull out of a cup, those are chits. But the counters that we push around on the board, those are counters. That's why we call them Hex and Counter war games. We don't call them Hex and Chit war games. I don't know. Something about chits sounds a little tiny and dismissive, whereas counters sound productive and useful. I don't know. Maybe it's the way Euro gamers aren't that impressed by war game components generally. I don't really care about components all that much. I prefer function over beauty, although I'll take the beauty. I like the new style counters that we're seeing these days, as long as they're not too busy. But I'll play old style or new style, just as long as we call them counters instead of chits. Anyway, thanks for listening. You can look for me at pushingcardboard.com and look for this space for future episodes of Pushing Cardboard, the podcast. Thanks.